How's it going? Welcome back to a very special video today with the majestic host, the Savior. And yes, oh yes, it's that time again because the Prince of Persia has returned. And we are in a very interesting time when it comes to the gaming industry right now. Although Xbox is dying, AAA games are on the downfall, I would say. We're not getting many games, okay? It takes a long time for games to come out, and it's pretty difficult for indie game devs to survive in this current hostile climate. But for some reason, in the last year, we've had 2 Prince of Persia games, which is a surprise.
From now on, I trust no one but myself. Run!
I've got to be honest, okay? As a fan of Prince of Persia, I grew up on the original Prince of Persia, and no, not the OG, but I mean the OGs when it comes to the PS2 days, okay? You know, Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and what was the other one called? The Two Thrones or something like that. I loved the original Prince of Persia games. I did go back and play the OG ones as well, and they were good for the time. And I even like that weird reboot of the kind of more artistic kind of spin-off, which was heavily focused on platforming. I really liked that one for the story.
I was on my way home. I had more gold than you could. I'd have had wine, women. I'd have had carpets this thick. Now I'm stuck with an angry god and a crazy woman.
Ubisoft took a massive risk recently and released The Lost Crown. And actually, that game was pretty goddamn good. And it had, you know, all the hallmarks of what makes a good Prince of Persia game, especially from a 2D perspective. And it did a lot of unique things. And it remembered what the Prince of Persia games were all about, okay? And that was good quality platforming and an interesting combat system. Because if you remember the OG Prince of Persia games, especially with Warrior Within and then the last game, the amount of crazy shit you could pull off with that combat, with the different combos that you actually had to memorize when games were actually difficult. Yes, I know that's a crazy thing to say. Proper action games like the original Prince of Persia games and something like Devil May Cry, they're kind of a dying genre, which is very sad to say, but that game truly did understand what made those games good. It wasn't as good as the classics, but it was still good nonetheless. But it seems that Prince of Persia is not dead, because here we are yet again with another indie spin-off. So if you are new to the channel, make sure that you do subscribe. Go down below, hit subscribe right now. Go do it. I'm not gonna carry on until you subscribe. Become a wise one and join this fantastic community. I'm trying to bring back the essence of old school YouTube here. That's why I love YouTube. That's why I started YouTube. I'm not gonna be Mr. Beast 3.0 over here, okay, so don't expect that. But if you do like the more analytical, philosophical side of analyzing media and games, you are in the right place, because that's what I do here. I do yearly reviews looking back at older games. I also do early access reviews like this one, and philosophical content. So if that sounds good to you, make sure that you do subscribe, join the Wise One community, and consider supporting me, as I am trying to do this full time now. Dropping a donation, joining as a member, checking out my music on Spotify, all of those things I would appreciate. So let's get on with the Rogue Prince of Persia review. I thought it would just be worth highlighting the current state where gaming is right now, because it's very, very strange to see something like this happen, especially in 2024, when we find it so difficult to release actual, you know, mainline entries of a game franchise these days. So it's pretty surprising to see 2 games of this franchise come out, you know, within the same time frame. So what is actually different compared to The Lost Crown? Is this game different enough? Is it worth it? Is the Rogue Prince of Persia worth it? That is what I hope to answer today. So the developers have also been working on Dead Cells, and a lot of people love that game, and basically everything that they learned from that game, they've transferred over to the Rogue Prince of Persia with great success, I would say. But sadly, from what I've played so far, it doesn't quite click with me as of yet, not as much as something like The Lost Crown did. And also, just to be real, okay, why aren't we getting a proper Sands of Time remake, a Warrior Within remake? That's what we actually want. That's what the fans actually want, or a new Prince of Persia game. Something, you know, that won't take so much effort to make. So I hope you do enjoy the Rogue Prince of Persia review. And with this Rogue Prince of Persia review, bear in mind that this is based on the early access game, okay? And from what I've played from the release of the demo build that they sent out to certain people. As much as I would like to say that this is just a slam dunk, and for many people it will be an enjoyable experience, I'm not so sure about the Rogue Prince of Persia, where everyone else is kind of positive on it. I'm not saying it's a bad game by any means, and you probably will enjoy this, especially if you are a fan of the 2D Prince of Persia games. It does a lot right, but it's losing a bit of that identity for me. You know, Prince of Persia is actually quite a big game franchise when you look at all of the games across all of the years, and they've done very different things, but they all stick true to the core. And yes, this does to a degree, but I feel like it's very light on the Prince of Persia stuff, okay? And it's more so focused on being a roguelike platformer game than an actual Prince of Persia game. And I just mean that by its aesthetic, its design choices, the core mechanics, and, you know, kind of the lack of identity when it comes to the Prince of Persia, you know, around time. So now I'm going to go into the positives and negatives like I always do, and I have to say it's a little bit of a mixed bag here, but that's my own personal perspective. I can see from an objective standpoint that this is a good game. It's solid, it runs well, there's lots of different, you know, paths leading to the same point, all of that good stuff, and the upgrade progression path of this, from what I've seen so far, from what I've actually tried, it does feel good. I don't know how far they're going to take it, but judging from Dead Cells, it's probably going to go pretty far, and you're going to unlock more and more interesting abilities. But there's a few things that is just lacking for me, and I don't want this to come across as mean, but I honestly feel like this is kind of a mobile game. It's kind of, you know, very suitable for something like the Switch. It's not something I would really want to play on, you know, a TV or even my PC, for example. I absolutely love games with a good art style, okay? Art style is 100% more important than fucking graphical minute detail, which is what is killing the gaming industry, and it's very sad to say, but that's true. Graphics and fancy, you know, art style. Graphics have killed art style, and this is oozing with graphics. I mean, this is oozing with art style is what I'm trying to say, and that's something I want, but this just doesn't do it for me because it's very, very minimalist, and for a Prince of Persia game, it just doesn't quite gel. If you replace the title and you took out some of the Prince of Persia elements, then you could easily, you know, mistake this for just being a new roguelike video game. So the first positive I've got to say is the abundance of loot. Okay, so they've actually delayed the release because of Hades, which I didn't even expect to come out of nowhere, so sadly I didn't cover it, but the loot here, I would say, is very, very well balanced from what I've seen. You know, you have a lot of choice when it comes to the different loot and the weapons that you can have, the buffs as well. And basically, from what I've seen so far, there are 2 weapons that you can equip at a given time. And there's some very basic, simple attacks, and then a more heavy attack. So it is quite simplistic so far with its combat, but hopefully that gets more and more complicated as time goes by. But from what I've seen so far, it's not that engaging, but I'm sure that will change as the game develops. But I do like the loot variation, and I like the trade-offs that sometimes you have to make. For example, you can come across these altars, and basically you can sacrifice a portion of your HP, and you only have a, you know, limited amount of HP per run, so it's quite an important trade-off to get a higher, more powerful weapon, or perhaps, you know, a weapon that will unlock a more difficult to reach area and stuff like that. So that's definitely a positive. A small negative is, like I said, this kind of feels like it's lacking the Prince of Persia identity, because the platforming in the original Prince of Persia games are just incredible, and you really have to think about them. This is very simplistic, okay? You know, it's very obvious where you can wall run, it's very obvious where you can climb and where you can get this certain treasure chest. It's very simplistic when it comes to the platforming, you know, avoiding, you know, kind of generic traps and stuff like that. It feels a little bit dated at times, I would say, but it is, you know, still very fun, and I'm sure it will get more complicated. I would just like to see more challenging designs and, you know, platforming that makes you think outside of the box, okay, instead of just the kind of generic, okay, I will run up here, I climb up here. The Lost Crown did a great job of, you know, mixing abilities with platforming, and I'm sure this will do that at some point, I hope. I touched on this before, but this is also a slight negative, and that's the combat. It's very simplistic as of right now, with 2 very simplistic attacks. Some enemies you will actually have to break their stances, and some you can actually just kick off a cliff, which is quite satisfying, or, you know, kick them into the other enemies to basically confuse them, and then you can deal greater attacks, stuff like that. I think this is going to be a positive and a negative because it depends on the person playing the game, but it doesn't quite fit the Prince of Persia aesthetic like I talked about, but it's the same with its audio. That's also very minimalist. For, you know, combat sound effects just sound a little bit, I don't know, cheapy, I would say. The music doesn't quite gel with me. I like the more Persian flair. But the biggest positive, I would say, that it nails so far is the fact that it works well as a roguelike, if I can get my teeth in, because that's what these developers are good at, okay? That's what they did well with Dead Cells, and it's working here as well because, like I said, there's lots of different branching paths, and when you unlock these branching paths, okay, that's when you discover, you know, side characters or shops or, like I said, these trade-offs that you can find to upgrade your weapon or get certain buffs and, you know, more shortcuts to get to that boss, and that's when it starts to feel good, and I'm sure they're just going to build upon that. But I just wish they double down better on the platforming, make it more interesting and engage your brain a little bit more, mix puzzles in with the platforming. That would be nice to see. Make the combat more complicated. I hope it's not just going to be 2 weapons at all times and, you know, they give you more slots, but I don't know as of right now. But it's just very simplistic as it stands right now. It's very much a minimalist Prince of Persia game. And if you want to just play something kind of to switch off your brain, then I would recommend this. I wouldn't say that this really challenges you. And even when it comes to the bosses, the boss that I have seen, it's not like the most difficult and it's very obviously telegraphed. But for die-hard fans of Prince of Persia like me, you will still get enjoyment from this, and I don't think it's a bad game by any means. But it's just a bit weird that this game came out at pretty much the same time as another Prince of Persia game, which basically did this, but much better. Obviously, they're a little bit different genres. That's more of a Metroidvania, this is more roguelike, but still, I would say as an experience, that felt much more Prince of Persia, but still, this is a good game, especially for fans of roguelike. So that was my quick The Rogue Prince of Persia review, the Rogue Prince of Persia Early Access review. Let me know if you think The Rogue Prince of Persia is worth it or not, and if you're going to be picking it up. And I do hope you enjoyed this one. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel and give the video a like, as that helps the magical YouTube robots that own my very existence and my soul to recommend this video, or give it a dislike. Either one is good, I guess. And I'll be seeing you in the next video. Have a great day, stay wise, and peace out.